Ah, the 1990s. Talking about giving me the warm and fuzzies. It's such a nostalgic time period for me. I was born in 1987, so I spent the bulk of my preteen years in the 90s. It was all about pop rocks and slap bracelets and Tamagotchis and Pokemon, and the 90s is so memorable to me. And one of the most memorable parts is the movies, the family movies in the 90s, especially. As a kid growing up, they hit so well. I might even sound like old man yelling at the sky, but I think the 90s is honestly the best when it comes to family movies. They were so broad across the board. I feel like now a lot of times they're just aiming for just animation, and we got animation in the 90s. We got stuff like Toy Story, which started the fuel for the CGI kids animated movies. We had classic animation from Disney with Aladdin and Lion King and so many others. We had Land Before Time, which my wife loves this franchise. Or you go into live action with some sports stuff for kids, like Angels in the Outfield. Or how about the Mighty Ducks? Oh, God, do I love the Mighty Ducks. You could go into movies based around animals, like Beethoven, Andre, That Darn Cat. Remember this one? There's also stuff like Free Willy. There was tons of animal-based ones. And then you just had a lot of them that put kids in fun situations. You had Leave It to Beaver, also Dennis the Menace. You had Heavyweights. This is a really fun one. Richie Rich. You also had Blank Check. Oh, a lot of fun. You had Life Size. There was great stuff on TV. Even speaking of TV, since this was a made-for-TV movie, how about those Disney Channel original movies? Oh my gosh, when that theme song came on... You know you were in for something good. I would sit down Indian style right in front of the TV a lot of times at my grandparents' and watching those Disney Channel movies. I loved them so much. I watched so many Disney Channel movies at their house. It seemed like they were coming on a lot of times when I was at their house. Oh my gosh, Disney Channel original movies hit pretty hard. Johnny Tsunami and Brink. Oh my gosh. The 90s was so killer. But this video, I don't know how I did it, but I picked out my top 10 favorites from the 90s for different reasons. And this is all stuff that did not make my overall top 25 list. If you didn't know, I'm doing a top 25 90s movie list that encompasses all of 90s. Everyone is free to join, and April 8th, I'm going to have a big live stream with a ton of people, and we're going to go over the results. I basically calculate everything in. As Ken said, I put it in a blender and come out with an end list. But none of these movies made it. I was still very action-oriented when I thought about it. But I adore the movies I'm about to mention, and they bring so much nostalgic memories. So before we start this off, the memory is a tricky thing because I would have swore to you this was a 90s movie. On my list, my dog Skip was going to make it. Absolutely going to make it. It turns out this is a 2000 that came out in January of 2000. So, kid me just kind of lumps it in with 90s. This is the 2000s. This does not count at all. But I would be remiss to not mention this because this brought back a lot of memories. I love this movie so much. My wife and I, when we first moved in together, we got a Jack Russell Terrier from the pound. We took it in because we loved this movie. We named the dog Skip. We named our Jack Russell Skip. We're like, oh my God, this is going to be amazing. This dog is going to be so awesome. He was the devil. This dog was the absolute devil. He was awful in every way. Look at these pictures of this dog. He was a menace. It was still sad the way he went. We only had him for a few years. He got sick. But it was a dreadful few years with this dog. We're not the type to just bring a dog back to the pound where it's like, oh, he's not working out. Because that's mean. But he was an awful dog. He was a terrible, terrible dog. We tried our best to make it work with him. And my gosh, he was vicious. He would bite anybody. He liked my wife. That was it. Just like my wife. I even got the picture where I got her out of focus, but I got his snarling ass in the photo. I don't know. I don't miss that dog though right now. But yeah, let's dive into the top 10 list. For my number 10, this one, I don't think you need the nostalgia of the 90s. If you've never seen it before and you're an adult, you never watched it, I still do think this one can work for you. It is Fly Away Home with Anna Paquin and Jeff Daniels. This is an adorable, heartwarming movie. Anna Paquin finds a bunch of baby geese and kind of takes them on her own to be like their mother. But eventually it comes to be where, hey, these are wild animals. They need to go free. They need to go somewhere where they're safe. So it's about them ending up building this flying machine and pretty much guiding them to the sanctuary that they got to go to. It's a great movie. Absolutely great movie. I ended up buying a one sheet for this movie because it's so damn good. Now in number 9, this one I definitely have a lot of nostalgia for, but I think it still can work. There is a Blu-ray for it. It's actually a pretty good transfer too. It is Indian in the Cupboard. This is so charming and nostalgic for me. It's a child who has this cupboard that when he puts the toys in, the toys end up coming to life and he forms like bonds with them. It is such a great movie. And I think this is kind of just like Fly Away Home. You can watch this as an adult and I think still take something from it and really enjoy it. Obviously, watching it when I was younger, though, this one really hit. So my next choice has a recent supporting actress Oscar, and it is Jamie Lee Curtis in House Arrest. If you're a 90s kid, though, you probably remember House Arrest. But if you've never seen this one, this is the main two kids. Their parents are getting divorced. So they come up with this scheme of locking the parents in the basement, forcing them to pretty much exist together, get along, try to mend their marriage. But kids around the neighborhood also find out about this. So all the kids are getting their broken home parents together in this basement through different means, locking them all in there. I'm like, you don't come out until you're back together, essentially. It is a lot of fun. It's a really good time. This one, I'm not 100% sure how this one would hit as an adult if you don't have the nostalgia, but it's Jamie Lee Curtis, and you can't go wrong with Kevin Pollak either. This is a very fun movie. The next one is going to hit a very, very specific target demographic. So Pokemon cards. I was a big fan of them. I was very, very heavily into Pokemon. And actually, I remember I was suspended from school for a reason. And it was not a reason that my mom agreed with. She took me out. I went out to eat, and she got me some Pokemon cards. I think they were my first Pokemon cards. And at this time, they were hard to get everywhere. So I fell in love with Pokemon, though. I was a big fan of it. And Pokemon the movie came out. I loved this one so much. And I remember when I think it was my grandfather that took me to this one, though. We had this like second run theater, but I don't know if it was quite second run, but I didn't see it right when it opened. But they still had the cards. Like they were giving out Mewtwo cards. And I got a Mewtwo card going to see it. This movie it's pretty damn good for an adaptation of the TV series based off the cards. But I hold a lot of nostalgia for like the Pokemon franchise as a whole. And it's weird to say that now because Pokemon is freaking huge now. So young kids are fully into Pokemon. So it's not something like, us 30-something-year-olds are the ones that have the fun memories. But I was there since the start, if that counts for anything, I guess. I loved it. I should say start in the United States. It was in Japan first, but I loved this so much, though. So, yeah, definitely fond memories of Pokemon. What is the best animal movie of the 90s? Actually, leave me down below what you think the best animal movie of the 90s is, because I will heavily, heavily stand up for Homeward Bound. I love Homeward Bound so much. Chance is awesome. What I loved about this movie is so it's the animals just trying to get home, but they don't try to make the animals do like the human talking or anything like that where it comes across fake looking. The dogs and the cat are just being dogs and a cat, but you hear the narration as if they're talking to each other. It is so freaking good. Oh my god. It's a shame that the VHS is a little beat, but I love this movie so freaking much. And Homeward Bound 2 is also really damn good. And these movies, at least that I know of, please don't anyone correct me, I don't think they mistreated these animals. I know Milo and Otis, there was quite a bit of mistreatment on set with the animals. I think Homeward Bound was on the up and up. Please God, let it be on the up and up. But yes, love Homeward Bound. It's your chance, do your dance in the Space Jam. Alright. God, do I love Space Jam so much. I did not see the new one because the new one looked freaking terrible. But adult me will still easily pop in Space Jam. I freaking love it so much. I was already a Looney Tune fan. I was already a Taz fan. As were a lot of kids in the 90s. Taz was kind of a big character, but I loved the character of Taz. I liked Looney Tunes, so I really gravitated towards Space Jam. Loved it so much. The Monstars are so cool as villains. It's just an absolute blast. Got the little Space Jam coin in there. That's really cool. But yeah, this one I don't think, well, I should say I don't think it can be replicated because they didn't replicate it with the new one. People hated the new one. That's why I had no ambition to check that one out. This is a movie that you can't. You could try to redo it. I'm all right with you trying, but I don't think you quite capture that magic that this movie had when it came out in 96? I want to say 96. But yeah, love Space Jam. Now, how about a little bit of Robin Williams? And you might be thinking Mrs. Doubtfire, but I kind of had a specific for my list. I did not want PG-13s, and I was shocked. I didn't realize Mrs. Doubtfire is PG-13, to be honest. I always think of that as a kid's movie, a family movie, and it still is, but it bordered the line enough to be a PG-13. Didn't realize that. But I'm actually going to go with, even if I could pick that, I'm going with Jumanji. The original Jumanji is pretty much top tier pinnacle Robin Williams. Like, if I was making a top 5 for him, it would probably be up there. My top 25 overall list will have a Robin Williams movie. It is not this one, but I was damn close. I was really close to putting this in the overall top 25. Jumanji is so damn entertaining. The whole concept, I already like board games, but the whole concept of you play the game and you're kind of stuck playing the game. Things are coming out of the game. You got a guy trying to hunt you. You have this like stampede of animals. It is an absolute blast. And I say the word fun a lot because that's what I really like in a lot of movies, and especially at this time period. Like, you can't watch this movie and not just have a smile on your face. It is a rip-roaring good time. So you say 90s, and there might be a couple actresses that kind of come to your mind right away. Like the Olsen sisters, a big part of the 90s, huge part of the 90s. But another one that really says 90s to me is Lindsay Lohan, and The Parent Trap is, oh my god, so good. So good. It is, the parents separated, and the kids were twins, and at a baby age, they separate. Each one takes a twin, and they live their own lives without the twins ever knowing that they're twins. And it's a whole trying to reconnect the parents to have a united family again. It's a fun movie. When you look at it as like an adult, it's like, that's really fucking weird that you actually separated your kids and never told them about each other. Like, that is really weird. But besides that, this is a very, very good movie, and I still do watch this one often enough, and now talking about it, I actually want to rewatch it. Lindsay Lohan was such a huge part of the 90s. All right, we are now at my runner-up spot with one of the most iconic movies of the 90s, I feel. I think this would be on a lot of kids' or adults' lists from when they were kids, and that is Matilda. My gosh, do I love Matilda. If you don't, I mean, how can you not know what Matilda is by now, especially with it now getting that new, musical movie release? But anyways, it's a character, a young girl who is horribly mistreated at home. Her family does not like her. Her father is Danny DeVito, and he's so good. But yeah, she has powers where she can move things and people, and she ends up forming like a relationship with her teacher, where her teacher is kind of like a secondary mother. Well, actually, a first type of mother, because her mother isn't a very good mother. So damn good. Loved it. My wife and I even went and saw Matilda on Broadway. We love the story of Matilda. It's so good. Mara Wilson is so adorable. She's fantastic in this movie. So this is one that will always stick with me. I could be 50 and pop in Matilda and still have a blast with it. Okay, we're at my number one. This is the first one I actually don't have the VHS for, which is kind of a bummer unless I missed it upstairs somewhere. But I do have the steelbook for it. And as a 90's kid, Nickelodeon was a huge, huge part of my childhood also. I mean, Nickelodeon was massive back then. It really was. And I was a big fan of All That, as were tons of kids. All That had Keenan and Kel and their characters that spawned Good Burger. Oh my god, this movie is so memorable. And I just rewatched it when this first came to Blu-ray, which took way too long, Paramount. Way too long. But, man, does this movie still hold up so good. Welcome to Good Burger, home of the Good Burger. Can't take your order. Oh, God, it's so memorable. You had Sinbad in a small supporting role as the teacher who keeps getting his mailbox run over. Sinbad was a huge part of the 90's too. My gosh, Sinbad was on a lot of stuff in the 90's. But I love this movie so much. It's an absolute blast. Like I said, it still holds up perfectly well. Good Burger is pinnacle Nickelodeon to me, and I love Nickelodeon. Like, God, 90's Nickelodeon was the jam, man. My gosh. So that's it. There we have it. That is my top 10 90's family movies. Again, these are not transitioning to my top 25 list, but as I was making my list, I'm like, I love all these family movies, so I decided I had to just make a separate video just to talk about the family movies of the 90's. So, yeah, if you're still watching and you grew up in this time period, even remotely, let me know down below what 90's movies you absolutely loved as a kid. I'm talking the stuff aimed at families. What stuff just brings you so much nostalgic memories you just absolutely love? Please let me know down below, because you might mention stuff that just didn't dawn on me. And there's stuff even in that intro part, I mentioned some stuff. There's so much more I didn't even talk about. Holy cow. So yeah, let me know down below your favorite 90's family movies. So that's all I got. Like, comment, subscribe, and send me your top 25 90's movies list.